guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be starting a new series in which we're going to explore what makes an 88 Fiero different. As in what changes were made to the car for 1988, which made it almost not a true second generation car, more of a 1.5 generation car. We're going to be talking a little bit about Fiero history, how it came about, why the changes were made, just so that we could go over why we love this little car so much and what makes it special and what makes it different from every other year of the Pontiac Fiero. This should be an interesting journey into Fiero history. So join along, because we're going to start this trip right now about the Pontiac Fiero. There are a lot of misconceptions out there about the car. And when you hear people who are not well versed in the car talk about them, almost to a fault, they get all of the information wrong. Everything that I've read, or 90% of what I've read about the car, is based on everything pre-1988, which doesn't take into account all of the changes that were made for 1988. This being one of them. Now, lately I have been seeing a few video reviewers going over these cars and looking at older models. Well, older models are all old at this point, but going back again and reviewing the Pontiac Fiero. And a few of them have actually driven 1988 cars. And every single one that I've seen so far has agreed that this is a great car, and the misconceptions about it are unfounded. All the negative things that have been said about it are completely unfounded, based on problems that the car had in its initial offering. As you know, if you work in the automotive business, never buy the first year of anything. Now, did they have their problems? Yes, they did. Were those problems all resolved? Yes, they were. Now, is it fair to review all Fieros based on one model? No, it's not, as the 1988 model is an almost completely different car from all the other models that came before it. And this is a prime example of why that is. So let's take a look at it and see what we have here. But before we do that, why don't we review exactly what models were available for 1988. The one pictured here is a 1988 base coupe. They are recognizable with the front and rear fascias that were new for 1987 carried over to 88, and the wheels, which are the TurboTech wheels, which were the upgraded wheels from the base 4-cylinder. The second model available was the Formula model, which is basically a stripped-down 1988 GT. It has all the performance parts, but with less weight. This model is easily recognizable due to having the coupe body, plus a rear wing which was standard only on the Formula model, and sporting the new for 1988 black wheels, 6-inch in the front, 7-inch in the rear, with the staggered size tires, which was also available on the GT. The last model available for 1988 was the GT. It contained all the options that were not standard on the Formula, plus the fastback bodywork. This was a beautiful car and my personal favorite. The Formula and the GT both carried the WS6 suspension package, which was the biggest change for 1988, as it completely transformed the car. GM spent $30 million in the final year of the car to build what they should have built in the first place. Now, in this first episode, we're going to cover the new subframe that was installed in the car. And we'll go over the rest of the components that were attached to it, like brakes and sway bars and steering, all that in later episodes. For right now, we're going to look at this subframe and see how different it is. For this first episode of what makes the 88 Fiero so different, we're going to look at the front subframe. This is the crossmember or front subframe from a 1988 Pontiac Fiero. It has been fully restored and powder coated and is in fact going to end up in this car. This is a 1988 Pontiac Fiero GT CJB, which is a code for the T-top option, which we'll talk about in later episodes. But right now, what we're going to look at is the front subframe. This front subframe is different from every other year Fiero. What it did, in fact, was widen the track of the front suspension, which pushed the front tires out a little further, which resulted in the 88 Fiero having narrower wheels in the front, 6-inch as opposed to 7-inch wide, than every other year Fiero. Now, all that was needed because they changed all the geometry of the front suspension, which improved its steering, responsiveness, and shortened the turning radius. So let's take a closer look here. Biggest differences of the 1988 Pontiac Fiero front subframe is the mount for the shock absorber, as this is the upper shock mount, which passes through the control arms, which are not attached here. They would be here, and the shock would ride up into the subframe assembly itself. On every other previous year Fiero, the shock absorber was mounted to the rear of the subframe here and attached to its mounting point on the chassis. Yes, I think it was on the chassis. I'm not really sure. Have to look that up. The steering rack mounts, virtually identical, even though the steering racks are completely different. The control arm mounts for the lower here, the upper which would mount to here. No, to here. I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking through the camera at the same time as I'm talking. This small subframe amounted for a huge, huge difference in the performance of the car. Now, when it's all powder coated and cleaned up, they are kind of pretty. But as I said before, it widened the track of the front end, shortened the turning radius, improved steering and steering feel, and generally just gave you a much better handling and feeling car compared to the earlier cars. Not that the earlier cars were bad, because from what I've heard and from driven one or two of them, they're just as much fun to drive. But this is one of the huge changes of the 1988 Fiero, which resulted in being almost a completely different car. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this little video. Just a quick look at one of the changes for the 1988 Fiero. We'll be back with upcoming episodes where we go over more of what makes the 88 Fiero different from every other year. Alright, I'll see you on the next one.